I am going to talk about some of our history, actually thanks to Terry Crane. You know, he's a hoarder. And so his wife said, get this stuff out of my garage or whatever you had to get it out of. So Terry, every time he comes down to, see students, he'll bring me a gift of a box of something. Okay, so he brought me a box that actually Raymond McInnis, who is program director for almost 20 years here, and prior to that he was a clinical coordinator and one of our founders. So I'm standing on the shoulders of giants, and two of them are here. And so thank you, Raymond. I called Raymond and he gave me a lot of the back stories for some of this. But I wanted to talk about a little bit of our history and how we started as a program and then merged to a baccalaureate program, and then why we are back again. So I have no conflicts of interest and nothing to disclose. Except I don't know how to use the computer. I have to disclose that. See, that's why I have all those students back there. They do this for me in the classroom. Okay, so you might not be able to see some of these documents, but in this box that Terry gave me was a treasure chest of old documents. And so I had lots of fun sitting there reading these things. This particular document that I found was just a brief history or overview that had been done, I'm sure by either Raymond or Charlie, about explaining how we started and the transition. So basically, in Terry's already said, in the early 70s, 1970, the dates 71, 72, actually 72 is when class started. The first 6-month class clinical training started. And then in 1975 and 1977, Charlie had already, and actually earlier than that, which I didn't really realize from the inception, the goal, and he was making plans to transition to a baccalaureate or a degree program. So proposals were made to universities here around the Houston area. And as we are very proud to say, we're the first accredited program of the American Board of Cardiovascular Perfusion was the accreditation group then, and Charlie was the president. So of course he accredited THI first. Anyways, into the 80s. And so that's kind of the timeline. So we'll kind of break it down a little bit. So this actually was also in the box. And if you can't see this scribble on here, but this is Charlie's notes. Okay, Charlie, and I didn't put the second page on here, but I loved it because he didn't sign his name. He just put the administration. But it was he was dictating notes to his secretary to explain the history of the school. And in this letter, he's basically talking about the first class. It was a 6-month program, and that the Board of Trustees for Texas Heart had approved him developing a proposal for us to become a baccalaureate program. And so this was his notes, just to basically write the letter to actually the Texas College coordinating board for universities and colleges. And so again, you've seen this picture. This is classic, but this is the very first class of the Texas Heart Institute. So I'm not sure the date of that letter, but it was prior than to, I want to say it was probably 73 or 74. So these two actually, and I didn't know this, Raymond shared this with me, that the first program that, or the institution that Charlie had thought about associating with was the University of Houston and not the University of Texas. So the first proposals were actually and this is a picture of the proposal to the University of Houston, and actually a letter from the dean of the College of Pharmacology with the University of Houston. Is at that time the University of Houston didn't have a medical program, that they did have a very solid, which they still to this day, solid pharmacology program. And so they were, the goal was to have an extracorporeal technology degree under the College of Pharmacology. So this was the very first proposal. 2 years later, Charlie tried again, that first proposal was denied. Actually, there was a moratorium on any new programs by the state coordinating board. And so that first proposal was denied. And so Charlie had the deans write a letter actually to the coordinating board of Texas about the urgency for having an organized education program for perfusionists in Texas. So, the early 60s, the first program was the Cleveland Clinic, and then the first degree program was actually established in 1968 at the Ohio State University. And I say the because my family's from Kentucky. We know about the Ohio State and the Cleveland Clinic. So those that love the Ohio State, I'm not poking fun. It's a fabulous institution. So there was a degree program at the Ohio State, but that was the only one in the late 60s, early 70s. Some other programs started. So then there were actually programs that had started in Pennsylvania, South Carolina had started, and there were a few associate programs, but there was no program in Texas. And there was, an explosion of cardiovascular cases. We're talking about late 60s, Dr. Cooley, then by into the 70s, we were doing a lot of cases here. Not the numbers that the perfusionists did in the late 70s and 80s, but there was a great need to have trained cardiopulmonary technologists, perfusionists, pump techs, and a greater need for people to teach them. And that we were lacking in both. So Charlie tried again, and unfortunately, the big concern with both of these proposals was that there wasn't a accreditation for perfusion as a profession and for accreditation of our education process. So segueing the education and formal education was also the development of a certification process and as well as an accreditation process. So the university system of the coordinating board for Texas was a bit concerned about starting a program that would actually be a baccalaureate program in perfusion without it being accredited by the AMA. Now, by the late 70s, we had already been accredited by the American board, but the standards to actually evaluate and assess how we were training perfusionists was in its infancy and had not been developed, and was actually it was slowly being developed. So we still had some lag there, so we were starting certification, but people were still being on the job trained. We had some education, but it was still not being assessed about what the standards were, so that there was, I guess, an assessment of were you being trained in the areas that you needed to be trained. So Charlie wrote the AMA, which is the American Medical Association, which at that time was actually doing accreditation for allied health education programs. And that segue of the health education programs for AMA was called CAHIA. And so AMA and CAHIA were going to take over the accreditation process for perfusion education. But again, our various organizations had not developed the standards completely. So it was still going through the American board. And that's a whole nother lecture, honestly. It's fascinating to me about how our organizations from AMSEC and the American board, and I guess from all of this, just thinking about what our predecessors, the people that came before us, and God bless the people that are here right now. I mean, as a student, and I started in 1983, and I didn't have a clue. I didn't know what accreditation meant, or I just wanted something where I thought I could be pretty good at it. But you all were very brave, very brave, and had a lot to learn, and didn't have people that then they were learning too, and took a deep dive. And I am forever grateful for that. And I think the point of this whole conversation, which I'll finish, is that we need to continue that journey. And the path has been paved by men and women much bigger than me, much smarter than me, much brighter than me, and clinicians that were much braver than me. And so it's a little smoother, but we got a long way to go. We still have things to do. So I think that's why I wanted to, especially THI perfusionists and graduates, because I'm proud and I think we're the best. So anyway, the students know I get off topic and they're supposed to help me. Anyway, so and whatever you think of Charlie Reed, he's a very complicated man. But the more I learn about things as I read these, the more I come to appreciate what he did for our profession, and for patient care, and for me personally, and I'm forever grateful. So these are some communications to the between the coordinating board of the Texas and Charlie. Charlie went to Austin, explained, what their concerns were. We were going to get accredited by the AMA, why there's a great need. And needless to say, both proposals from 75 and 77 to establish a baccalaureate program between the Texas Heart Institute and the University of Houston was denied by the coordinating board of the Texas colleges. And so we continued as a certificate program throughout the 1970s. And these are just a few of the classes of those, what I call my heroes, of the people that graduated in the 1970s. And I'm so thankful that some of them are sitting right here. And one pesters me like all the time. So all the time. Okay, so Charlie started again. He tried again. And so he submitted another proposal, but this time through the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. I found this from the desk of Charlie C. Reed. The pen is in red. If you guys know Charlie, he liked to write in red. Usually there were words on the papers that you couldn't put up on the screen that was going to go out on the internet. So I thought this was pretty cool. So he said, start a file on the BS school. So, this is Charlie actually speaking at one of the graduate dinners from the podium of his favorite restaurant, Sunny Looks. So we either went to the Marriott or Sunny Looks. But anyway, this is just a picture of the proposal for the baccalaureate program at the University of Texas Health Science Center here in Houston. This time Charlie got some big guys to write supporting letters. And so Charlie had letters written by Dr. Arthur Keats, who was our Chief of CV Anesthesia here at St. Luke's, Texas Heart. And in the notes, it also says there was a letter from Dr. Cooley. I couldn't find the letter, but I'm sure there was also a letter penned by Dr. Cooley, or Terry kept that letter, maybe. Anyway, but it is on Dr. Cooley's stationery. And so Charlie wrote about the urgency and need and the support, and how a perfusionist and anesthesia work so closely together. And actually, by this point, the cases were exploding. Now you're in that era where we're doing 5,000 hearts. And so think about, you've got, and they showed pictures, you've got 10 staff. Chris, you can remember how many staff you had, and how many, 7 staff doing 5,000 hearts So you do the math and you know that students, I was here in the early 80s. We had, 2 rooms. Sometimes we're running from room to room. We were, maybe doing, 4,000 hearts, but I'm sure it was crazy. So a dire need to have an education program to train perfusionists. And it was starting all over the country. And also on top of that, which I didn't put in here, it wasn't for the money, okay? Because I don't know what Chris started at, but I saw where she got a raise and it was up to a whopping $12,600 annually, not monthly, okay? Okay. So for whatever reason, University of Texas, whatever you got, that program was approved within 6 months of the proposal. So the baccalaureate program in perfusion technology was approved, and the program was going to transition from THI to the University of Texas. In June of 1982, Charlie was appointed as the program director and adjunct assistant professor of perfusion at the University of Texas Health Science Center in Houston. He received no salary or tenure from the UT in that year. Now, I don't know if there were subsequent years, and Raymond may be able to answer that question, but I couldn't find any documentation. So again, wasn't that he was getting paid a lot of money or getting tenure to be part of UT. Raymond McInnis, my mentor, my chief, was named the coordinator, the perfusion coordinator for the program. And so Raymond was actually that also named, and these are some papers, he was named the recruitment. He was on the recruitment committee, which Raymond shared with me. He was the only recruiter, so he was the committee. And he was also on the curriculum and academic curriculum development. So Raymond was fundamental in developing the curriculum for the THI program, both at UT and here at Texas Arts. So thank you, Raymond, because we wouldn't have a curriculum without you. Also, this letter was interesting. I can't see it, but I wanted to share with you in this, in the letter, I had the names written, goodness, of the students that were in transition, and they were given credit. And I wanted to read these to you, so here we go. Let me find them. Goodness. Well, anyway, on here are, I know Bob Owens is, Robert Owens is on this list. Penny Giddings is on this list. Doug Thompson's on this list. So I wanted to just point that out, that those are the transition years. This is a picture of the first dean's list of the first transition class for the UT. And these are that were on the dean's list, and I whited out the grades so I wouldn't get in trouble with the government. But these are the names of the people that made the dean's list that first year. And again, Doug's on there, Penny's on there, and all of these. I got a kick out of this because a lot of these names are my seniors and my staff. And so this is a picture of the few classes in that early 80s that were transitioning from certificate program to a baccalaureate program. And I think about the work there is in running two programs that are the same. I can't imagine running a program where one was through a university and one was through THI, and keeping those balanced and separate. So kudos to Ray and Trudy and all of you for managing that. Shortly after the school became a baccalaureate, in 1983, the school became accredited by the Committee for Allied Health Education and Accreditation, which is CAHIA. And so we had continuing accreditation. It just transferred from the American Board to CAHIA. In 1994, the American Medical Association started withdrawing accreditation for allied health programs. And so the accreditation process for allied health programs, including perfusion, transferred from CAHIA to what we now today know as CAHAP. And the COA for perfusion for CAHAP is the ACPE. So that's the organization that accredits our programs today. Okay, in 1985, Charlie retired, became a consultant. He consulted from Pickles Gap. He was named the Chief Emeritus. Raymond was named the Program Director at THI and the program at UT, and Trudy continued to be the Associate Director. And we continued through the 80s. I'm not really sure, and I couldn't find, and Ray and I had a really nice conversation about why the decision was made for UT to close the program and transfer it back to Texas Art. There was a change of deans. There was a new dean in the early 90s. Dr. David Lowe was the dean that, and I don't know where he was from, but he wanted to look at all the allied health programs. I read some things about transitioning some of the programs to a master's level. And for whatever reason, that was made, a decision was made to close the perfusion technology program at the University of Texas. So Ray, again, kudos to you and Trudy for keeping it together, because they had a short window to transition the sponsorship of the program back from UT to Texas Art. So these are just correspondence between UT to Raymond that were taking no more classes in December of 1992, starting in 1993. That would be the last class that would enter. Now, Raymond didn't sit around and just say, okay. So Raymond was actually trying to find other universities for us to affiliate with so that we can maintain our baccalaureate program. So all of you that trained during that time and thought Raymond wasn't doing anything, shame on us, okay? So actually, there's proposals and conversation between Raymond and the Texas Women's University and Southwest Texas State University. Both of those and I think it was time, and Ray can expand on that. I think it was more of time and trying to transition the programs. And so the decision was made by the board to transition the program back to THI as a certificate program. So when it came back as a certificate program, and this is actually the last classes in 1993 that were baccalaureate programs through UT. So when the program transitioned back, now the accreditation required a bachelor's degree. In those early days, people were entering with associate's degrees, some people high school degrees, and then transitioning to baccalaureate. So it was established that you had to have a baccalaureate degree. So from that point forward, that's why our program is now a post-baccalaureate certificate program, which continues today. Okay, 50 years strong. We continue because of the hard work and dedication of Charlie and Raymond and Trudy and Terry, Diane, and all the staff and students that served during that time, and developed a formal education in our profession of perfusion technology, and we're forever indebted to you all. Made a reality by Dr. Cooley, our founder, and we've got lots of hard work still to do. So God bless. Thank you very much.